Hey, Mortgage Coach community, Dave Savage here, and today I am interviewing Annie Ransom. What's up, Annie?
Hello there, everybody.
Hey, it was awesome to see you at Sales Mastery. Uh,
Yes,
how many years is it that you've been saying you've been going to Mastery?
this is my seventh year. So,
Awesome. Well,
yeah.
it's my 25th year, so I'm dating myself, but it was, it was a great event. So,
Congratulations. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, no doubt. So Annie, let's talk about, how you're having success in today's market. Just in my conversations pre-call, I think you really epitomize someone that's very high touch. Most of your clients are coming into your office, but yet you are also using technology to have a better conversation both in the office and outside the office. So let's talk about that. But before we do, if you could just tell everybody who's watching what market you're in, a little bit about your platform, how much production you do, and then we'll get into the big ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Annie Ransom with All Pacific Mortgage in Portland, Oregon, and I've been in the industry just under 11 years now. Getting ready to have that anniversary at the beginning of the year.
Congrats.
And last year I became the production manager for our office. So I also do my own production. On average, I do about 20 million, about 75 units or above each year. And
Congrats.
then help manage everybody else to be successful. So
That's
that's,
awesome. Well, you've got your hands full, and that's great production.
yeah.
So now walk us through what is the main referral source for most of your clients, and then you mentioned that most of them come through your office. Kind of walk us through your typical customer.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very 100% referral based, whether it's, referrals that come through my online reviews through Yelp. Really big into Yelp and in our marketplace. Of course, I have a healthy mix of realtors and their production, and then big on database management. So making sure that we wow the client from the very beginning of the process, make sure that they feel nice and safe and taken care of, and that we get repeat business by making sure that they feel loved on and feel like there's nobody else that will take better care of them than us and our team.
I love that you used some keywords. Hope everybody heard it. They feel safe and they feel
Mm-hmm.
loved on. And at the end of the day, people that feel all of those things and they feel like you care, like they're special,
Yeah.
you're going to kill it. So let's talk about people coming to your office. Walk us through your perfect loan process and try to include how you use the total cost analysis within that in-office experience.
Sure. So with every client, I do a pre-phone interview just so that I have an idea of how I can prepare for that meeting. And I typically request that they send in any supporting documents in the application so I can do some prep work and we can make the most of our time together. And then once we are, and I'll always use Mortgage Coach with every single client, whether it's a refinance client, a move-up buyer. I incorporate it into investment clients, any which way that we can. I think that Mortgage Coach is pivotal for us to be on the leading edge of what's happening. Way back when, years ago, before I was introduced to Mortgage Coach, you'd send a fee worksheet across the table and try and explain to them the long-term value. And that didn't always stick with people. And so I think that allowed a lot more competition in the door. And so since incorporating Mortgage Coach into my sales process, it's tremendously helped in terms of my conversion ratios and making sure that I'm looked to as that authority. So I do a lot of prep work leading up to that meeting. And then, it's just as much an interview process for me working with the client as it is for them on the other side of the table. So I ask a lot of questions. I determine what their needs are. I explain. I'm very big on education and making sure that the client feels informed, not just initially, but short-term and long-term, and what that house is going to do for them. I'm a huge believer. We partner with a lot of financial advisors. So making sure that if a client tells us, hey, we want to be in this house for 3 to 5 years, I need to keep that in mind to make sure that the program that I'm putting them in is going to accomplish that goal for them. And then obviously I continue managing that person in my database over that 3 to 5 year period of time. So we're right there with them, making sure that they're on track and that their net worth is where we expect it to be or better, so that we can keep them moving forward with their goals and their dreams. And I use that every single client. I encourage all of my loan officers. We meet every single Tuesday to talk about I think I told you every other week we're sitting down and listening to the Tuesday calls, and then we go over content on, the remaining Tuesdays. So talking to them about what's working, what's not working, how we can, tweak some information to make sure that it's making sense to the client. Because it's such a huge decision. I mean, it's the biggest decision, right? And usually they're only going through this process a couple of times in their entire lifetime. So once it's done, it goes out the door. And unless, I'm sitting there making sure and following up with them on a regular basis, doing annual mortgage reviews using Mortgage Coach for them and the scripts that we've learned over the last couple of years, then they're never going to think of us again, and they're going to forget what the process is or what the goals were that they told us about. So it's really awesome to be able to follow up with them in the future, and say, hey, a year ago you guys mentioned this. Has anything changed? Is there anything that we should know about? Let me update these figures for you. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, and let's set our plan up for the following year together.
So I love so many things about what you just said. I want to make sure folks caught some things. You'll notice that Annie is not just presenting rates and fees and winning a transaction. She understands their goals. She's using Mortgage Coach to say, hey, here's how you can achieve your goals with your mortgage. I heard you talk about managing the mortgage over time. By the way, what CRM are you using? Just curious.
Jingo, Salesforce.
Good. So everybody on there's a great integration between Mortgage Coach and Jungo. Anybody that's watching this, if you don't have that activated, email your team at Jungo to turn on your Mortgage Coach integration. Again, by the way, I love the fact that you listen to Tuesday calls and you do that twice a month. Any particular calls stand out as some of your favorites?
Oh my gosh, I'm a huge Jeremy Forcier fan. I followed him my whole career. Nobody puts things as eloquently as Forcier does.
Yeah, no, he's good. And that, by the way, I think he's done so many great calls with Mortgage Coach. I'm going to put a link to the scripts call with Jeremy and Tim Brahim. This is like Mortgage Coach requirement.
Yeah.
Tim Brahim, Jeremy Forcier, and Danny Hirani. Last year we just did a bunch of scripts, and then also his the 5 questions he asks at realtor meetings. And how he integrates Mortgage Coach into the realtor meeting, down below. Check that out.
He's a master.
He is the man. By the way, how do you integrate the fact that you have this great process, this great experience, and you use Mortgage Coach to help families understand their long-term goals? How do you integrate that into your value prop with agents and referral partners? What is that? What do you do, and how does that sound?
So I have a sort of a conversation that I have with agents. Every single agent, I use total cost analysis, or I should say, whether it's a property that might be a better fit for a move-up buyer or rent versus own. I do it for every single listing for every agent that I work with. I have it printed out, ready to go. I try to go to as many open houses as I can so that I can communicate the importance of real estate. But my biggest aha moment with agents that I've worked with is, a lot of times borrowers will come in. I always ask them, what do you want your monthly payment to be, including taxes, insurance, everything? And I say, great. So I place together or incorporate either the move up buy or our rent versus own analysis. And I explain to them, their standard tax deduction. I explain to them their tax deductibility of owning real estate. And then I share with them, side by side, what they're paying now in rent versus what their net rent mortgage payment will be. And it has increased. On average, we're able to increase the purchase price that we're sending them out there in our marketplace by $50,000, which is huge for our partnerships, because if I'm sending them out there, as everybody knows, 50 grand is a lot more home. At least in the Portland metro area, that's a matter of 1 or 2 properties that might be currently listed versus bumping them up where they have a whole lot more options. And that's providing a huge value to my agents too, because, they're selling 50 grand more of a home.
Yeah, right. Well, and let's face it, the buyers that you put through that process, the reason that they're paying more is because you through asking them what their assumptions are, they're seeing the wealth creation opportunity of buying a home, and they're probably not only buying more home, they're more decisive. They're not hesitating. They're making the offer necessary to get the home.
Right.
And let's face it, it's a pretty competitive market. And at the end of the day, when you can help a family be safer and more clear,
Right.
there's value for everybody.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah. Now, by the way, it's been an awesome call. So, by the way, everybody, if you are listening to this and you're getting value, you're watching it on YouTube, give us a like and share it with your team. Whether they have every family come into an office or not, like Annie and team do, or whether they're just phone and internet. And let's close with that. By the way, so
Yeah.
not every single family comes into your office. So let's say they don't come into your office. How is the total cost analysis or mortgage coach different? And I'm going to pull a script out of you. When you explain the total cost analysis to the family, what do you say? So that when they get it, they're like, "Wow, this is great."
Sure.
How do you position it?
Sure. So especially for refinances, which I find the majority of people, if I'm not meeting face to face with them, it's because they're wanting to refi. They've been through the process before. They seem a little bit more in tune with, where the rate is, where the fees are. So I'm selling it to them of, let's make sure that this makes sense for you. I'm not here to say, you're contacting me to do a refinance. That's really awesome. But my job is to make sure that this makes sense and that we're helping feed you not just immediately, but in the future as well. I had a conversation with a loan officer in my office that said, "Oh, I don't want to do a total cost analysis for every single client." And I said, "Well, why not?" He said, "Well, if they see the short term of, what it's saving them, but the long term, it's not necessarily saving them." I said, "Well, but think about this in a different way. If that client can save $250 a month and they've got some credit card debt or their house needs some revamping or whatnot, that plays into the overall picture. It may not necessarily mean that they're saving money in that first 5 years, but what's the long-term interest saving for eliminating a credit card debt or by, updating that roof after a couple of months of savings?" So I've been able to use that and share that information even with my clients to say, well, hey, this is what I'm seeing. I see that there's a potential for you to save right away, but based on our initial conversation, it sounds like you've got these other debts, or maybe there's something that you want to do with the property, or there's some vacationing that you want to take with your family. Those are all really important things too. So that's kind of the approach that I take to that total cost analysis. So I place together the numbers, I contact them immediately. I go step by step through each of the various sections and each page to make sure they make sense. And then I give them some time to chat it over. And on average, I'm closing about 40% more than what I was doing prior to total cost analysis, which is awesome.
Boom. So let's almost close this because you made me think of something. The last day of Sales Mastery, I had breakfast with Wally Elderberry,
Yeah.
$100 million a year producer. And
Yeah.
I said, we talked a lot. It was towards the end of the conversation. And I said, forget about Mortgage Coach. What is your biggest takeaway from the Sales Mastery? And he said, I'm going to do 400 loans this year. And my goal is to do 100 more. And I just realized that if I got more referrals from all my clients, I would achieve those goals. And so he goes, I'm actually going to start implementing and executing the annual review. He's like, I already give every family a total cost analysis. And anyways, through that conversation, which by the way, afterwards I go, Wally, let's go outside and record this. So I'm going to put a link below. It's like 2 to 3 minutes of Wally and I doing a rant on this. But here's the deal. If your goal is just to get a credit report and close a loan, it's possible without Mortgage Coach.
Right.
But if your goal is to get a referral while they're in process, to make sure that they're safe and clear, which in your case is getting $50,000 bigger loan amounts, creating more urgency. And if your goal is also to get the most referrals after you close the loan, well, then you have to do a total cost analysis for every family.
Right.
Again, if it's just transaction, you could get away with it. But if it's referrals, optimization, every family's got to get a total cost analysis. So you agree with Annie?
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah,
We
right on.
wouldn't be what we are without it. So
Good.
I can't imagine going back to I call it the old school,
Yeah,
old
right?
school way of doing loans. Yeah. We use
Yeah.
Mortgage Coach for our fee worksheets. I mean, there's no reason that we're operating out of our LOS unless we're processing a loan.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, hey, you are a great modern mortgage professional. Thanks for being a leader within, the company you work for, Jim. We got to get more of, the old school loan officers are still quoting rates like it was 2007 to get them
Right.
to do it like it's 2017. So,
Exactly.
Annie, thank you for taking time to share. And again, everybody, if you like it, please share this with your team. And let's get a total cost analysis for more families out there. Take care,
Awesome. Thanks for
everybody.
having me.
Bye.
Thanks.